Welcome to another beautiful Monday morning. It's always a pleasure coming your way. This is the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. So a fresh week starts and we're hitting the ground running. Let's start talking about our news review. We're going to host, as usual, all fiery, all fired up, Professor Ransford Jampo. He joins us for that segment as we get into topical matters like, for example, the wearing of wigs and all of that, and the sort of dressing proposed by the Chief Justice. I'll be running that by Professor Jampo to find out what his thoughts are from the latest caution of the Chief Justice. But coming up on the show, the big stories that we have lined up for you this morning. In the aftermath of what has happened in Piate, the explosion, we'll tell you about the rebuilding efforts as far as that community is concerned. They have to rebuild from scratch. It's a conversation on how to get the community back on its feet, how to ensure this disaster doesn't recur, and how to psychologically prepare the people or reorient the people. It's a traumatizing event. We'll be having Abdullahi Mahama, an engineer and a building consultant as well, joining the conversation. Dr. Ruth Owusu-Antwi is Vice President, Ghana Psychiatric Association. She will also join the conversation. But also coming up, you may have heard by now about the Accra Senior High Technical School at Odumase-Krobo in the Eastern region, which has been temporarily shut down after some residents attacked students over the lynching of a suspected thief. Now, 2 people were involved. Both of them were taken to the hospital, but unfortunately one passed and the other one is still in the throes of severe injuries. We'll be bringing you updates on the UTAG strike as well. We've been told about the fact that after 21 days, well, the schools will shut down. I'll run that as well by Professor Jampo and some other guests we shall have. But get ready for the 73rd Annual New Year School and the theme, COVID-19 and the socio-economic dynamics in Ghana. Just gear up for this. We'll be telling you more about it on the show. And don't you forget, in sports, well, maybe you could call it sweet revenge. They made it one step further, but the Gabonese were pipped yesterday by way of penalties by Burkina Faso. So is it good? Is it bad? Don't you forget, when it comes to the World Cup qualifiers, we've been pegged with Nigeria. Where do we go from here? Listen, stay with us. We bring you the best experience in the morning. It's always worth waking up for. Up next, we bring you the news. Do stay.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM News with me, Mapito CBED. Now, first story, Accra Senior High School at Odumase-Krobo has been closed down following brewing tensions between residents and students. A suspected thief died after he was allegedly attacked by some students of the school at Odumase-Krobo in the eastern region. The deceased and one other suspect were reported to have been arrested and physically assaulted by the students when they sneaked in on them on campus. Residents have since stormed the school premises to attack some of the students over the incident. Headmaster of the school has been giving further details.
Yeah, a thief came in the night yesterday and we managed to apprehend him. And whilst we were keeping him for the police to come for him, another one emerged, came threatening the students that if they don't release this one, he will bring folks from town to come and beat them up. And it infuriated the students and they beat him, but we managed to rescue him. The police came in, we took him to the hospital, and upon reaching there, he was pronounced dead. When he was apprehended, in fact, the students started beating him. But when the teachers got there, we managed to prevent them from beating him. Because in fact, the students, it was a student that he was caught by the students. Yes. So definitely they started the beating and the shouting before we got from our bungalows. And then when we got there, we managed to rescue him and then kept him for the police to come for him. So we didn't know. We didn't know how he managed to get to the compound. Because the place is by a portion of, so we don't know whether he jumped the wall. And in fact, when he got to the compound, even if he had kept quiet, but he came threatening the students that if they don't release this boy, he's going to bring town folks to come and beat them up. And in fact, that is what annoyed them. Yes. If he had kept quiet, I don't think they would have done anything to him. You see? And it was very difficult managing them because over 500 students. How many of us? We cannot. So we had it very tough rescuing the first one and even this one because we were there preventing this one from this one also happened. So, in fact, before we got there, it was late. And for the stealing case, we've experienced several stealing cases on campus. Several. And so, in fact, the boys are so much, I don't know how to describe it. Yes, they are very angry. And so we know that the day they will catch any thief on campus, it will be something else. So that anger has built in them because we've not been able to catch any of the thieves. They come, do whatever they want to do, and they go.
The police have since taken over the matter and have assured calm. Superintendent Doris Grant is the Odomasa District Police Commander.
I had information that there was a report from Akko that some 2 guys came to the school and they are thieves. And so they brought them to the station. They reported. So my men responded and then came here and they saw that the people had been lynched. And so I gave directives that they should be taken to the hospital. So they went and unfortunately one died. St. Martin's. Last night they met some youth and they were able to calm them down. So my men were here till this morning, throughout the night till this morning. And this morning, the situation is calm. My men are still here. Yes.
No.
My men will be around. You see, the place from here to the station is not far. So my men will be around. So if there is anything, they'll be able to contain it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Education Minister Dr. Yao Osei-Edu-Chum has refuted suggestions that the future of Ghana's education looks gloomy. He says Ghana has committed more resources to education than any other country in the West African sub-region. Dr. Edu-Chum has been engaging civil society organizations on how to improve the sector. Blessed Soga has more in the following report.
The Ministry of Education says its transformational agenda in the educational sector is on track. However, in a bid to improve service delivery, the sector minister, Dr. Yao Osei-Edu-Chum, has been soliciting the views of non-profit organizations and civil society. Key on the agenda is the issue of improving infrastructure across public schools in Ghana and also issues relating to educational reform.
Saw somebody do a write-up. And he said, education's future in the country for the next 10 years is gloomy. And I said, wow, what kind of planet is this guy living on? I also had to cut him a slack because maybe he doesn't know what we're doing. So I won't blame him too much. But the next 10 years in this country, in terms of education, the future has never been brighter. Never been brighter. The transformation agenda that we have begun is to enable us to create a space where education can play its rightful role as the most important lever for socio-economic transformation. I'll tell you this, I'm not bragging, but I always say that I'm the luckiest education minister in the world. Lucky because I know how to create an education system that can transform economy, that can transform a community. I know.
The participating groups tell me that the engagements were fruitful. They have, however, tabled a number of concerns for government to consider.
I think this meeting has exposed some of them so that at least we can also run with it and then also follow through in terms of how government is going to implement that. And if you look at the flow of the policies, they are responding to some basic issues within the education sector. So we need to also commend the ministry for giving us that logical policies that they want to follow and how they are addressing issues in the urban sector as well as the rural community.
Well, we believe that the facilities for infrastructure for the schools that we have, both in the rural and the urban areas, is something that would really change the game for education development in this country. And I'm very happy to hear that there are a lot of interventions going on that are going to really correct some irregularities that we already know about. It would be so gratifying to know that at our next meeting, as the minister promised, we would have some feedback on some of these developments, and I guess that it can only get better.
One thing that I also gathered from today is that there's a lot more that we have to do as a nation to make sure that persons with disability are included, because all the education processes and systems, they are really wonderful, and it's only fair that persons with disability should be part of the process. So I think from here we're going to engage the ministry more and see how persons with disability can also be part of the program.
The minister is hopeful that he will be able to transform the sector by the end of his tenure.
So the bottom line for us as a ministry is that we have to create the ecosystem, the environment that will enable our agencies to do well. Whether it's Ghana Education Service and now TVET service at the high school level. Our goal as a ministry is to create that environment so that they can do well.
Blessed Sogan for Joy News, Accra.
6 people lost their lives to flash floods in the Upper West region last year. Major roads were cut off, hundreds of farmland submerged, and close to 9,000 people displaced in the violent floods. Upper West Region Director of the National Disaster Management Organization, Mustafa Ahmed, made the disclosure at a party organized for personnel of the organization in the region. Joy News' Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from WOW.
The Upper West Regional Director of the National Disaster Management Organization, Mustafa Ahmed's speech was a familiar one and centered on the August 12, 2021 flood disaster that swept across all 11 municipal and districts in the region. The violent floods cut off some major roads in the region. 8 out of 11 municipal and districts were cut off from the regional capital.
All the 11 administrative districts that were affected, 4 of them were actually mostly affected, and in our case we call it the severe affected areas so far as the flood were concerned. They are the Wa East district, the Fiama Buse Esa district, and the Nadoli Kaleo district. In these 3 districts, 191 communities were affected. The number of people affected and displaced were 9,195. The number of houses that were affected stood at 756 houses that were collapsed. It was not spared. Some of the farmlands were equally spared. 6,548 farmland acres were washed away. Hitherto, as of now, we should have been talking of harvesting. Unfortunately, the flood of August 2021 washed away 6,548 acres away. Our major roads were not spared. The Trans-ECOWAS road leading Wa to Burkina Faso cut off, and some parts of DBI, the Piama enclave, equally was not spared in terms of road infrastructure. Out of this, 34 people were injured. Unfortunately, 6 of them we lost them through flood.
Chief Director at the Upper West Regional Coordinating Council, Peter Mala, who spoke on behalf of the Upper West Regional Minister, commended government and non-governmental organizations for coming to the aid of the victims, which he said has ameliorated their sufferings. He, however, urged them not to lay back and continue to support them.
The consequences of such disasters will not just get solved over a short period of time. For now, we are grateful for the relief that all that has been sent to the region is given to disaster victims. But we also know that the long-term effect of this disaster will continue to be with us for years.
There were solidarity messages from heads of allied institutions and development partners. Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam.
The 2018 National Best Farmer James Obeng is asking government to help bridge the widened gap between urban and rural education by providing facilities for schools and farming communities. He made this call during the opening of the Kwafre Digital Farm School, a project initiated by the former National Best Farmer with support from Coral Reef Innovation Hub. The school will provide access to infrastructure, human resource and content challenges for children of farm laborers who walk 5 kilometers daily to access education in nearby villages. There's more in the following report by Anas Sabit.
Education has proven to be a very important tool for development in any country. In Ghana, however, basic facilities for children to access education has been very poor and deplorable. The situation is even worse in most rural communities where lack of school buildings and facilities, lack of books, library, computer laboratory, and in some cases long distances between homes and schools continue to be obstacles that hinders the educational sector. To help bridge the widened gap between urban and rural education, Coral Reef Innovation Hub, with support from the 2018 National Best Farmer James Obeng made a move to establish a school structure in Kwafre, where children here are forced to trek for more than 5 kilometers to access education for lack of trained teachers and learning facilities. James Obeng, a former National Best Farmer, is the brain behind this move.
I think that education, apart from the fact that touches lives and ensures livelihoods, education also addresses social tensions and everything. Once you have education, tendency for you to be a social misfit is minimized. In fact, when I came here, 6 children were studying under a tree. We opened the school and we had 90 children. The rest of the children who did not benefit from studying under a tree were potential misfits in society. And if you want to develop as a country, you look at all sectors of your country. And so that is why we have decided that, as I said, in a farming setting, we will provide top-notch education so that the children here will be very competitive as the other children in the key cities.
Chief Executive Officer of Coral Reef, who are partners to this project, Richard Osei Enim, highlighted why his outfit decided to support the Kwafre Farm School.
For me, it's a personal agenda or a core belief that education can happen anywhere, irrespective of location. What you need to demonstrate is commitment, passion, and a reasonable budget. If you align those 3 things, irrespective of location, we should be able to deploy technology to benefit every child.
He however noted that the project is utilizing technologies to bridge the gap in knowledge by providing the children with ICT materials to enable them compete with children in the urban areas.
Well, it's a simple matter of exposure. If I put a GIS student or a Roman Reef student here now with a Kwafre student, no contest. Give us a year, 2 years. You should see some kind of them moving as par, to be at par with those types of students. That's what we want to achieve.
Sir James Obeng, however, appealed to government to support the school with more structures to help complete the efforts of the implementers of the project.
We do need support to increase the infrastructure by way of additional classrooms, additional sources of energy, and any other infrastructure that we can lay hands on. What we have just done is the beginning, is only the foundation. And we need government especially and other stakeholders to come and help us make this a reality.
Coral Reef Digital Solutions provided the school with more than 25 tablets, a laptop, a projector, robotic kits, charging units, and training for volunteer teachers. Reporting for Joy News, Anas Sabit, Kwafre Inyinase in the Nkranza South District.
First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joseph Osei-Wusu, says government may never be able to rely on the Speaker, Alban Bagbin, for a successful government business. He says the Majority Caucus has to take advantage of the one majority they have, knowing that the Speaker cannot be relied upon. The Member of Parliament for Bekwai was speaking at the ongoing capacity building workshop organised for the Majority Caucus in the Eastern region.
Osei-Wusu said the majority is a party in government, but it appears that the Speaker conspicuously gets missing anytime the House needs to take a critical decision. Speaking at a capacity building workshop for members of the majority in Parliament and ministers of state in Kwewu Nkwetia, the First Deputy Speaker charged members of the majority to focus on how to get government business through in this era of the 8th Parliament.
To deal with the challenge of taking advantage of the one majority we have, knowing that we may never be able to rely on the Speaker in these circumstances. We must work with the view that there are 137 of us plus one who may be presiding. In that circumstance, how do we go about reaping the one advantage we have as a caucus? That, in my view, should be the focus. We are a party in government. In the chamber, we are called the majority. But it does appear that any time we have to take a decision, we either need Mr. Speaker in the chair or all of us must vote. How to reap this should be the focus of this meeting.
Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Kwamina-Hwenyo-Markin, on his part, hinted that government needs innovative ways to generate and increase domestic revenue to meet the high expectation of Ghanaians. He said government requires support of all Ghanaians in its quest to innovatively generate revenue.
And that's it for the AM News. For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Mapito CBD. The AM show continues with Benjamin Akakpo.
Well, let's settle now for the news review. We'll be joined shortly by Professor Ransford Jampo, who will be sharing his thoughts on a number of matters. But right before we hear from him, let's check out what the papers have. Quite a number of them I have with me this morning. We'll start as usual with the Daily Graphic newspaper. It says, to sack Milo or not? But is this even in question after the decision that has been taken? Stakeholders divided over Black Stars. And just to give you snippets of what the paper says, stakeholders in Ghana football are sharply divided over how to salvage the Black Stars following their abysmal performance at AFCON 2021 in Cameroon, which saw the team crash out at the first hurdle. Now, while some insist on a radical approach, the outright dismissal of the head coach, Milovan Rajevac, and the dissolution of the national team, others are calling for cool heads, sober reflection, and a measured approach to the way forward. Last Friday, an emergency meeting was held at the Jubilee House between the Minister of Youth and Sports, Mr. Mustafa Yusuf, and the leadership of the FA and the Black Stars technical team, during which the minister expressed the nation's disappointment at the team's showing. Of course, that directive was also given to the FA, that is the FA president, Kurt Okraku, and his colleagues at the FA, that Ghanaians had lost confidence in the technical team's ability to lead the team to success, and consequently directed the FA to relieve Coach Rajevac of his post and also reconstitute the Black Stars. But what do you think? What do you think? The views are mixed. They are myriad. And it's not just you, if you thought so. There is Kurt Okraku on one end. Some have said that, look, we're heading for that encounter with the Nigerians when it comes to the FIFA World Cup. We sack our coach now. How do we prepare? Interim measures and all of that. There are the likes of Mr. Joe Agri, a former sports editor, Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo, who feels Rajevac should go, and Mohamed Ahmed, famously known as Polo. All of them have shared their thoughts. Well, only God knows how this is going to work out. Who's going to be the replacement, the stand-in manager or gaffer? And how will the fortunes of the Black Stars be affected, for the positive or for the negative? We'll find out. Let's check out some more stories. And New Year School opens today. That story on page 16. Let me bring you just a teaser. And it says the annual New Year School and Conference opens at the Great Hall and the City Conference Center at the University of Ghana, Legon, today. Organized by the School of Continuing and Distance Education of the College of Education of the University, this year's School and Conference, the 73rd edition, is on the theme COVID-19 and Socioeconomic Dynamics in Ghana. We'll be telling you a bit more about that in the course of the show. But in case you haven't heard, 2022 Basic School Academic Year trimester system stays. Yeah, for here, they say the trimester system is going to stay. That is on page 44 of the paper. But let me just ask you, those of you watching us, some have said, oh, that shows that our education ministry, the Ghana Education Service, they listen. And some on the other end have said, oh, this simply means they are confused. They don't even know what's up. They don't know what's going on. And so they keep vacillating, pendulating. My director likes that word. And shifting from here to there. But had the proper deliberations, consultations been done, would we have ended up here? And should a stopgap measure now become a full-term, measure? Because we know why the semester system was brought in. It was to address specific challenges on the back of, free SHS at one point, and then on the back of COVID-19. So why do we continue with that, expecting kindergarten children to be in class for so long and for 6 months at a go? Well, you can check out details of that on page 44 of the paper. And then Vice President attends UN Security Council meeting. You know, we are a non-permanent member and we are part of the Security Council. But speaking of Burkina Faso, it's not just the football where they beat Gabon to the joy of some Ghanaians, I don't feel. I mean, our team it is what it is. The fact that the Gabonese are out doesn't make our situation any better. But Burkina Faso military camps hit by heavy gunfire, and sustained gunfire rang out from several military camps in Burkina Faso on Sunday as mutinying soldiers demanded more government support for their fight against Islamist militants and the resignation of the army and intelligence chiefs. So there's a whole lot more that you can check out from the Daily Graphic newspaper. The middle spread, death is certain, tax not so certain. And we pictured there former President John Dramani Mahama. On the back page, Kotoko, Pip, Mediama. And that is how it panned out. The Daily Graphic says Mediana, but Mediama it is. And Asante Kotoko still on top with 30 points after having played 13 games. When you look at the league log, many teams with 14, all the way to the 7th placed Karela, all of them having played 14, but still not catching up with Krobia Asante Kotoko. Let's do the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. Pictured here, we have, well, you know him, Dr. Yao Osei Educhum, Minister for Education. And it says, introduction of pre-tertiary semester system. Government makes U-turn as Education Ministry reinstates trimester calendar. I was talking to you about that a short while ago. More condolences pour in for victims of a Piate explosion. That story on page 16. So, on page 17, I should say. And words of sympathy continue to pour in for victims and affected families of last Thursday's explosion at Apiate near Bogoso in the Huni Valley municipality of the Western region. In separate statements and messages issued over the weekend, some institutions wished the injured speedy recovery and conveyed their condolences to the bereaved families. The sympathizers included the Center for Environmental Impact Analysis, the Migrant Labor General Workers Union International, United States Embassy, and the Ghana Chamber of Mines. All of them commiserating with all of us as we actually commemorate that very sad event. I saw A similar post from La Liga Santander, believe it or not. And I'm just trying to retrieve the shot I took of that, because La Liga was also commiserating with us. And it was interesting because they even added some P in there. Amazing stuff. The CRI applauds Minister for efforts to transform education system. And the Minerals Commission shuts down Maxim Company. That's on page 7. And 5.1 million euro tissue paper company set to begin operations on Friday. There's this thorny issue, though. Should Mr. Speaker take part in debates before the House? It's a piece by Kosi Edem. And there's also a piece on page 9. Why go to church regularly? When was the last time, if you're Christian, that you made it to church? Interesting pieces, opinions that you can check out there. But when we talk football, late goal ditches Hearts, and there's also Princesses win away in Uganda. They did us proud, beating the Young Crested Cranes of Uganda by 2-1. That's it for the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Let's do the Daily Guide now. And we have, don't turn Parliament into boxing arena. That's according to Freddie Blay himself, someone who has been in Parliament before. And our parliamentarians, they have basically turned this into a, I don't know whether it's Muhammad Ali or Richard Comey or Isaac Dogbe or whatever, but we're hoping that as they go back on the 25th, they are indeed not going to turn it into a boxing arena. But that's Freddie Blay sharing his thoughts there. Maxim suspended, Mines Inspector sacked. Story on page 7. Some have called this a knee-jerk reaction. Some have said the minister himself, not the interior minister, but the lands minister himself should be bearing some of the blame. Why do they think that? They feel he is directly in charge and should have taken care of some of these matters to forestall the disaster we saw. A Piate explosion. Driver saved school kids, victims speak. And some of you have been inquiring, you've been asking about whether the driver made it, whether the policeman who was escorting the vehicle, so to speak, made it, whether the rider of the motorbike made it. The point is, all of them did make it. The driver of the vehicle, the truck, the police officer, and the motor rider. They all made it. And again, ACP Kwesi Fori has been reinforcing the fact that the police officer, together with the driver, were telling people to move away because they knew that there was going to be an explosion. But here's something interesting for all of us. Between when the car turned over and burst into flames and everything, and the first explosion, it was between 15 to 20 minutes. Enough time for most people to have moved away. But around that time, there were still people, even when they were being cautioned to step aside, move away, who were now approaching the vehicle. And it turns out that of the 14 who have now passed, it was 13. As of yesterday, we had, unfortunately, another death. The 14 who have passed, these people were a large number. So, but the point remains, how do we move on from here? The entire Piate, community, practically leveled to the ground. Of course, we had Mr. Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia actually on Friday go there. He made a donation, mattresses, other things that they would need, and a 200,000 Ghana cedi presentation. Some of the males are being housed in a different hotel, females as well. So we'll see how that pans out. NATMO, though, has been a bit slow. As of Friday, there were still dynamics that had not been, even the sharing of items. Yesterday, Seji, the director, was actually on the probe with MFA Apau. For me, I'm still not convinced that everything we can do is still being done, but let's hope for the best. 66 million Ghana cedi full trial of ex-SNID boss, others begin. And of course, there's a story about Bawumia attending that UN Security Council meeting. But let's check out some, what do you call them, conspiracy theories, or I don't know what you would call them, but the UK warns of plot to install Russia ally in Ukraine. Of course, pictured in the paper, Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister. He's pretty renowned when it comes to negotiating some of these matters. The UK is accusing President Putin of plotting to install a pro-Moscow figure to lead Ukraine's government. If you followed in recent times how Ukraine has been giving a pushback, and the United States and some of its allies, the UK and others, talking about the fact that the Kremlin is slowly encroaching on Ukraine and trying to take it over. If you remember the incidents in Crimea, you would know that this has happened before and it could happen again. So these overtures by Russia, are they just nothing to write home about, nothing to speak about, basically to bother about? Is the US making a mountain out of a molehill, or is there real serious trouble brewing? The Ukrainians, they're not sitting down and they don't want to take this for a joke. On the international front, the New Zealand PM, remember her? She cancels wedding amid COVID spike. Not in Ghana. I'm sorry, I'm not poking fun at us, but you know what we have done, even in the midst of COVID. So, not surprising, yeah? Heavy gunfire at military bases in Burkina Faso. And then there is NSS. I'm interested in this one. NSS to become employment agency. And the focus of the National Service Scheme is set to become an employment agency that will create job opportunities for the youth in the country. The executive director of the scheme, Mr. Osei Sibentri, has said. He said the current management of the scheme are rolling out more innovative programs to ensure that more service personnel will be in gainful and viable employment after their service. I look forward to that one, because when you look at the number of people who go through the National Service Scheme and come out and then go and sit at home, makes no, as a country, after all these decades of the National Service Scheme. Otumfuo becomes second Asantehene to wear the Batakari Kessier, and Two-Face Idibia smiles to Davido and Wizkid's reconciliation. That's on the entertainment page in the Daily Guide newspaper. Of course, Tubaba has been responding, and he is actually happy that the two bigwigs of Nigerian music, Davido, and I should say African music, they are part of the wave. They have actually patched up their relationship. Let's take a look at the final newspaper now. 9 children searching for their parents after a Piate explosion. That's on page 13. Sad development. It's like a war-torn area. The area torn to shreds, and some people are, children still looking for their parents and all of that. I heard, as Maxwell Agbagba reported, from there, how a child saw, I think, the mother, right before the explosion and being torn to shreds, and so many things. Gory scenes. These are things that will traumatize some of these people, even children, for a long time to come. And that's why today we'll be speaking to the Psychiatry Association to find out, what the plans are for these people. Child Rights applauds Dr. Educhum's education reforms. Everyone is happy. Trimester system back. And Kodria promises more jobs at commissioning of YEA Western North office. Now, government miners to rebuild Piate and absorb medical bills of victims. That's according to Dr. Baumia. The mining community has also reached out, I think Goldfields as well, and Ashanti Goldfields, or Anglo Gold Ashanti, among others, reaching out to help mitigate the sort of impact it has had. Anyone found culpable in a Piate explosion will not be spared. That's according to Lands Minister Abu Jinapo. But, we are very reactionary and not proactive as a country. So if you found out, but what could we have done to forestall that? It reminds me of Jeffrey Archer's book from way back. Was it Jeffrey Archer? I think it was. The 11th commandment, don't get caught. So in this country, you can do the wrong thing. Once you don't get caught, it's okay. You get away with it. And that's how bad it is over here. So now this has happened, and now we're looking for heads to roll. But could we have forestalled it? Maxim, they've had their own issues. Could we have prevented this happening? Service is missing in the country. That's according to the Ochehene. And man defiles and impregnates a stepdaughter. This is actually a story we've been bringing to you. In other stories, so let's take a look at this one. Ghana now owns a Mary plant. That's according to Deputy Minister. It's a story that has been feeding in from last week. Let's do the Ghanaian Publisher newspaper now. Indecisive Kojo Bonsu warns NDC. Mahama can't win 2024 polls. Let me bring you part of why he says that. So, former Chief Executive Officer of the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, Mr. Kojobosu, says he wants to become the presidential candidate of the opposition National Democratic Congress because of the MPP's opinion about John Mahama, claiming he is incompetent and corrupt. They have mudslinging him, or they are mudslinging him with other falsehoods, which the NDC has not been able to clean or tell the people that it is not true, he added. We, that is the NDC, have allowed the falsehood against Mr. Mahama to stick in 2016, and we have allowed it again in 2020. So we need to bring a new face to go and tackle it for the swing voters who made up their minds on Mr. John Mahama. So for him, it's not that the incompetence and corruption are factual or true, but his point is the NDC has not been able to take it away from their candidate, to not make it stick. They've allowed it to stick in 2016 and in 2020, and so they have no hope in 2024. And he is the best option for them. What do you think? Well, that story is on page 3 of the paper. And there's Netflix. A lot of you watch it. Netflix faces rocky road after pandemic wins. And the number of Netflix subscribers grew to 222 million last year, but the streaming firm is facing a rocky road ahead as the surge of interest it saw during the pandemic fades. Overall, Netflix added 18.2 million members last year, but it looks like this year things aren't looking too good. This story was a very worrying one that I took a look at. It says, coach 26 in police custody for sodomizing teen players. We give players to you, coach them, it ends up in sodomy. This coach probably doesn't know about the law on sodomy in Ghana. We've had instances. Well, the Central East Regional Police Command is carrying out investigations to ascertain the actual number of children alleged to have been sodomized by a football coach. The 26-year-old coach, Benjamin Kojo Bano, unfortunately he bears my name, is currently in police custody after being nabbed for allegedly defiling the teen players at Zion, a suburb of Kaswa in the Awutu Senya East municipality. He was said to have promised them successful football careers. And there's also give us time to pay 1% levy, tourism chamber to government. All of those stories in the Ghanaian Publisher newspaper. But let me wrap with this one. And we've been hearing from the Justice for Ghana group. When you think of them, you think Bernard Mona. They are beginning a 3-day picketing at Parliament tomorrow. Now, a civil society group, Justice for Ghana, has announced that they will embark on a 3-day picketing at the premises of Parliament from January the 25th. In a statement circulated on social media, the group indicated that the objective of the planned picketing is to register their dissatisfaction, their displeasure with the controversial e-levy bill. And I'm quoting, the leadership of the above group wishes to notify you about a planned picketing at the Parliament House of Ghana from the 25th to the 27th of January 2022, dubbed Occupy Parliament House. And so those are their reasons, and they say they are going to be there. You remember sometime last year, they attempted saying they went to a certain extent, but they were not allowed to proceed as they had wanted to in Parliament. We'll see how this one pans out, especially as they were refused the first time. Let's do Republic Press now. Support promotion of Ghanaian culture, government told. And then Volta region, man 65 arrested for possessing firearm. Let's take a look at that story on page 8. So let me just get the details of that. So it says here, Ho 363 police recruits sworn in. That's obviously not the story. So the story is actually on page 7. This thing the papers do, eh? Anyway, so 65-year-old Wisdom Badasu is assisting the Ho District Police investigation into offences of possession of firearms without lawful authority, cruelty to animals, and causing harm. Police say on Wednesday, January 19, 2022, some Fulani herdsmen went grazing with their cattle at Agbakope near Ho. While grazing, they heard a gunshot and later detected that one of their cattle had been shot dead. Reports indicated that a search for the assailant by the herdsmen in the bushes proved futile. Now, the herdsmen decided to look for the attacker, and after some time, the suspect emerged with a locally manufactured gun. The herdsmen confronted the suspect over the killing of the bulls. The suspect took offense and in the process bit the thumb of one of the herdsmen. The herdsman managed and arrested the suspect, who was immediately handed over to the police. So we often demonize. There's that stereotype that it's always the herdsmen, the herdsmen, the herdsmen. You see that sometimes it is not they who are on the wrong end of activities or the law. So at least in this instance, this man has been apprehended, and that is a step in the right direction. SIM registration, NIA, NCA driven mainly by commercial interest. That's according to Imani Africa's Bright Simmons, sharing his thoughts there. And then this one from Bulldog. Stop the foolish investment in football now and invest in music. Bulldog is saying, you've invested in football. I mean, the last AFCON, we were spending, upwards of 6 million, not the 25 million that was touted, because that's an entire package, even for the under-17s and all of that, and the female teams. But upwards of 6 million. The prize money for AFCON 2021 is 5 million. We're going to pump all that money in there, and we've seen, like Kaby Lane will say, these are the results. Bulldog is saying, pump some of that into music. Yeah, build our music industry, and don't pump all of it into football. What do you think? You can share with us with the hashtag AMShow. There's also AFCON 2021. Moses Simon says, Nigeria not getting carried away. They lock horns with Tunisia, and we wish them the very best. I mean, they've been trolling us on social media, but it's nothing we wouldn't have done if they had exited, so we can forgive them. The Custodian newspaper, our forefathers built Ashanti NPP together. Chairman Odeneho says that government cracks the whip over a Piate tragedy. Are they really cracking the whip? Are they really cracking the whip? And there are other stories in there as well. But we've been joined by Professor Ransford Jampo. And let me quickly get to him as I run by him some interesting bits that we have for this morning. I think I'll skip the papers and go straight to that. Prof, me watching you.
Yeah.
Now, no pay. Yeah, what to say?
Well, by the grace of God, all is well.
Right. I'm sure for those of you thinking,
you guys are trying to make us part of your working team.
You are part. You are part already. You are part already.
You're making us wake up at times that you should be sleeping and resting.
Prof, for God and country, for God and country.
To be enjoying our strike.
For God and country. But speaking of the strike, let me start from there. So, as university teachers, you have this directive. After 21 days of being on strike, schools shut down, schools close. Is that going to happen? Because we are there. Is that the next step? Are students in the institutions going to go home? And is Utah going to sit down and allow that to happen?
So unfortunately, in our various rules and statutes, these have been written and documented that if you don't attend lectures or lectures are not held for 21 days, then the universities may have to be forced to shut down. We do not want to see our universities close down. We are not happy to be also on strike, but it appears that as things are going, we are heading towards that unfortunate situation. And I want to hope and believe that the government may be concerned by the plight of the students. The government may also want to listen to the demands and cry of
Are you suggesting, Prof, that government isn't concerned with the plight of the students? Because you're saying you're hoping they'll be concerned and take action. Are you suggesting they are not concerned?
Well, I mean, we've made demands. We've been talking about better conditions of service for a long time. Certain specific demands have been made. There's been no offers yet from the government. And they are aware that we have students. And what even saddens my heart is that, well, they are all around, students are around, going up and down and not benefiting from lectures. And we also have foreign students amongst us who have also joined from various parts of the world.
Right.
And we are not happy about the impression that they may even carry out there. Once upon a time, they used to say that in some other universities, if you go, you are not certain to complete within the scheduled academic calendar.
Right.
But if
Right.
you come to Ghana, you'll be able to complete. And we don't want to be part of those universities that do not have certainty of completing academic calendar,
Right.
for students and for foreign students. And so I will use this opportunity to appeal to the government that we've been at this, we are in the third week, and if this week closes, then the universities may have to shut down. We don't want the universities to shut down. And so I appeal that government should also make its offers to UTAG and
Right.
let these offers be considered by its members. And if the offers are good, I'm sure that members will be happy.
Do you think
to
if
go back to
government
the
makes
class.
an offer, you can quickly reach your membership across the 15 institutions and come to some conclusion before deadline day? Do you think that is possible? If government, how soon do you think government must make the offer so that you can react before shutdown day?
Well, government must make the offer this week, before the close of this week.
Right.
And I'm sure if government heeds to this call, we would be able to quickly speak to members and see, take note that the fact that we are saying, I'm asking the government must make an offer does not mean members will just accept anything because they are so concerned that the universities will be closed down. I keep saying, last week I said it, the university teacher is a very thinking person, a very discerning person, a very sophisticated person. And so you don't just treat him like rats. You can do that and go scot-free. And so I will plead and I will appeal that government should quickly find something, find good offers and make to UTAG. And I'm sure that once these things are done, we'll be able to bring some finality to the situation, because we are not happy being on strike.
Okay. Prof, the Piate disaster has left a very sour taste, a very bitter taste, I should say, in all our mouths. But we're told that the Maxim company has been shut down, the company conveying the explosives, the chief inspector of mines has been interdicted, among others. But some say this is just an attempt to make it appear we are doing something, another knee-jerk reaction. And some have even said that the lands minister himself, Abu Jinapo, should bear part of the blame. How do you feel we got here? And what is your general take on how we should approach this disaster moving forward? Are we doing the right things?
Well, I think that first of all, our condolence to those who have lost members of their family. And we pray that the good Lord keep them, the departed, in his bosom.
Right.
And also those who have, so those who are now living and they have experienced or suffered this loss, we console them. But I think that generally the problem has to do with our inability to enforce strict safety protocols and precautionary measures against some of these dangers and some of these unfortunate situations. We tend to be reactionary when some of these things occur, just to pacify public outcry and public opinion. But the point is that as a developing country, we have the penchant to allow dangers to escalate. We have a penchant to allow some of these unfortunate situations and circumstances to degenerate into some of these disasters before we react, and it is not the best. And so Well, some measures have been taken. I consider them as reactionary, but I want to believe that, you see, and typical of us, we'll talk about this in the next 2 more days, not even 3 days, the next 2 more days, and then it will be the end of the situation. And that is who we are as a people. And these things have been prevalent among us, and this practice has been part and parcel of of us, for a long time. Incidents like this occur, we lament, we resort to knee-jerk reactionary measures. Then in 2 days, we talk about it, and then there is a finality to it. People are left to be on their own. I believe that it's about time we took effective measures to ensure the proper implementation of all safety protocols to guide some of these practices so that we don't get here. I want to commend those who have visited the site and the family to commiserate and to console them. I'm told that people have also gone there to donate some relief items. I believe it's in the right direction, and I want to also hope and believe that the National Disaster Management organization has also been there to bring some comfort to those who are suffering now.
Prof, I want your quick thoughts on this. I don't know whether my producer will give me enough time. I don't know whether we can do it, but just some two quick points I'd like to run by you. The first one has to do with the Public Interest and Accountability Committee. Recently, they put out a report indicting the management of the GNPC over an acquisition of a residential property at Chapel Hill, a suburb of Takoradi in the Western region, for $7.5 million. The structure is basically falling apart. And Piate in this report particularly faulted the GNPC chief executive, Kofi Kodia-Sapong, saying he acted, quote, in breach of the laws governing conflict of interest. I only bring this up because financially, we know where we are as a country, $7.5 million. We are trying to plug the holes when it comes to taxation. We are introducing levies here, taxes there, and all of that. Yet we seem to be bleeding a lot of money when it comes to state resources. Your quick reaction to this bit?
Well, we are always in a hurry to set up institutions just to be able to run them down and to make sure that they become toothless. Public Interest and Accountability Commission is one key institution that is supposed to bring some accountability in the management of petroleum revenues and resources. But over the years, I know that they've made serious findings and they've made recommendations that have been snubbed. These recommendations have not been heeded to. And so that is typical of us. We set up these institutions, and once they begin to operate, some way, somehow, the overbearing posture of the executive arm of government dwarfs them. And so you can make your recommendations, but we've heard it, but we may not be able to work with it. And that has been one of their challenges. It's an important institution aimed at bringing about some accountability in our systems and the way our petroleum revenues are managed. So if they are saying these things and these things would not be taken seriously, then it's up to us as a developing country. But we have to rethink some of these practices that tend to dissipate or waste resources of the nation. I think generally it appears that we have the penchant for fetching water with baskets. If you look at the way a manner wastages are encouraged, and wastages and slippages, in the system, where manner they occur without much preventive or much measures aimed at preventing them. It leaves one to continue to wonder whether we are really a serious nation in our efforts to develop, because we cannot develop by looking for money and allowing the money to go down the drain. The little resources that we have, we tend to easily waste them, and this has been our challenge. So wastages and slippages in the system have been our major challenge. We've always resorted to measures aimed at raising income. Now the government is talking about e-levy and other domestic means of raising resources. And I keep asking, the last time I asked, they are raising the resources to do what? You are raising the resources only to waste them. If government would at the same time look at ways and means and measures implemented aimed at checking the wastages in the system, then I'm sure that we would see that we have a lot of money, but we raise and then we allow them to go down the drain.
We raise and we allow them to go down the drain.
Yes, wastages and leakages and slippages are our key challenge as a nation in our effort to raise resources for development.
Prof, we are grateful for your time. Thank you for joining us, albeit a little tardy, but we are very grateful that you joined us this morning. And I wish you the best of the day, Prof.
Sure.
All right, Professor Ransford Jampo joined us for this morning, albeit much later for the news review. Up next, Nabila will be joining us. Nabila Abdullahi Muftahal will be joining us with sports. Of course, you can expect more talk on AFCON 2021. That's up next. Stay. Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. And we start with our very first big story. It has to do with what happened in Piate, the explosion. And it's all about rebuilding the community from scratch. It's a conversation on how to get the community back on its feet, how to ensure this disaster doesn't recur, and how to psychologically reorient the people and prepare them for the future. Joining us, Abdullahi Mahama is a building consultant. He's an engineer. Dr. Ruth Owusu-Entwi is Vice President, Ghana Psychiatric Association. But before we hear from them, let's take a look at some of the happenings in there. Maxwell Agbagba actually has been in the fray, and the rider of the motorbike involved in Thursday's explosion at Piate in the western region says, contrary to claims that he collided with the vehicle carrying the explosives, he was at the hospital getting ready to receive treatment when the explosion happened. Let's check out details from this package.
He walks towards personnel of the Criminal Investigations Department who are seated waiting to interrogate him on what he knows about the crash which led to the explosion. The rider limping with his legs and arms bandaged. There are bruises visible on his left hand. He was later taken to the crash site and other details taken. Philip Menson says, contrary to claims that he collided with a vehicle carrying explosives, he did not. The tricycle crossed the vehicle in front of me. The driver applied his brakes. I also did the same. Then another vehicle hit me from the back. I fell on the road and my motorbike also kept moving. I did not see the car that hit me from the rear because it was behind me. That was the point people rushed me to the hospital, he said. About 30 minutes later, as the medical team prepared to treat my wounds, we heard the explosion. All the nurses fled the hospital because they said there was fire. Later, they realized the facility wouldn't be affected. So I was not at the scene when the explosion happened. You can ask the nurses and the doctors on duty. I have no idea when the vehicle carrying the explosives crashed into my motorbike because I was rushed to the hospital in a taxi. It was another vehicle, not the vehicle carrying the explosives, he said with tears forming in his eyes.
Explosive car don't be and no me time a car need be share me motor because me no me talk from na di in be an boys ni free abaya mo dem beto taxi need me call but what am I say aha the car from the ball any explosive car car na ebo me mechi.
Philip Mensah says it has to know that his motorbike caused the explosion.
Me feel bad pa if you say me nimpa na you asen so yen na ye nuanom.
I feel very bad. I'm human. We are all humans with different parents. Whether my family members are part of the dead or not, it hurts my soul. There's so much pain in my heart. People have varying accounts of what happened. Some are even saying I collided with a vehicle carrying the explosives. Only God knows the true story, because I was not here.
That's all.
Meanwhile, the municipal chief executive of Prestia Huni Valley, Isaac Dasmani, says there are plans to reconstruct the community that was devastated by the explosion.
Today, CEO of also Ghana Gas also came today and then offered a check of our 2 million Ghana cedis to us. We are planning for a music meeting, hopefully tomorrow, Monday, that we inaugurate a committee of members of our 11 or 12. So that we'll be foreseeing the disbursement of some of the relief items and then how we are going to cater for the displaced in the course of the year. So for now, we are proposing some clergy, some pastors, about 5 people from the community, including 2 females, and then my good self, and then some other security agencies that we feel is appropriate, so that we manage the resources that we are getting, and at the end of the day, to the benefit of the people of Piate. Then when it comes to the reconstruction, a lot of companies have come in, and then State Housing has been here, some other agencies have been here, and people go, Ghana Chamber of Mines, they've also offered building materials of $50,000. So all these materials are in here, and then some people, you can see that some people are even bringing some containers that we can keep some of the items in. Yes, and then we have some people who have also started donating some boards, the wood that we can also use for reconstruction and all of that. So the support has been massive. Now we are only waiting for EPA to clear us that the place is appropriate for us to start, rebuilding. So if as soon as they give us the green light, we'll get those out to clear off the site and remove all the debris, and then we'll deposit them somewhere. Then probably we'll start thinking about, we know now the time is going to be properly planned, we may need an extension. So we are thinking about some other areas that very close that we can, extend the building to some of the places. Because of course, when you are building, you can't build like the way they have built their houses. We need to make sure that we do proper planning, and then so that they can have a good facility to stay in.
And that was a piece put together by Maxwell Agbagba, who has been there since this unfortunate incident happened. So we have some, call it new information, where the motor rider or the motorbike rider is saying he was hit from the rear. And then he also, got into the path of the truck carrying the explosives, and that he was not even there in the immediate vicinity when the first explosion took place. So this story will keep developing, and if it were in other jurisdictions, we'd be able to find out, for example, so which vehicle, he is claiming a vehicle hit him, the motorbike rider, which vehicle hit him? What is the number of that vehicle? And the necessary course of action would proceed from there. But let's start our interaction with our guests this morning. Abdullahi Mahama is a building consultant and engineer. We also have Dr. Ruth Owusu Entry, president of the Ghana Psychiatric Association. Engineer, Doc, good morning to both of you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Yeah, good morning.
Can we hear
Thank
from...
you very much. Good morning.
Great. Pleasure to have you. Let me start with you, Engineer Abdullahi. You're an engineer. This is technically your forte. So looking at the landscape of Piate, what has happened and how the place looks now, what would be your initial assessment? If I were to ask you to give an assessment of what you see, what would you say?
Well, I'll say good morning first and foremost to your viewers. The area is more or less like it has this high altitude and other things, but the explosion that occurred has just changed the formation of the locality. And so, like you rightly said, I heard the MC speaking to issues, and I think almost everything that they said is what they are supposed to do, or that will be my initial, what we call, report from a physical observation or a reconnaissance survey on their side. So you cannot say anything about, apart from what you see, the existing topography of that land, the fact that there are rocky areas within the neighborhood, and anyway, the formation of the land that we have to now assess prior to any construction being done. So on the engineering side, I will speak about it when we start going deep into the formations prior to the construction of or reconstruction of the Piate community. Right. But even before we get there, I'd like to, I mean, we know that there was quite a package of explosives, but looking at the land area, and again, this is because this is your area of expertise. You're not a mining engineer, but I know that you would be able to assist us. What kind of quantity of ammonium nitrate or, these explosives could cause the sort of damage we are seeing? I mean, just give us a fair idea of what it would take to level Piate to the ground the way it has been leveled to the ground. Well, I've been engaged, or I've been involved in some of these blastings. The Ayimensa to Peduase stretch, when we were constructing the road in 2004 to 2007, we did a lot of blasting to widen the road, because the right-hand side, when you are a bound, was a valley. Same applies what we did in Sawam, the bypass, and the Kumasi Highway. That's a Teacher Mante, Isuboy, Amana Sitan, where we have some rock outcrop. So I know what goes into some of these explosives. Even the ones that we use for the construction, I mean, the blasting of those rocks, I would say about 1/10 will be used at a time, unlike what happened. So the quantity of blast that happened at the Piate is about maybe 1/10 of what I use or what we use during the construction, or during the what we call the control split blasting on our highways, where we have rock outcrops. So this is an intense or very huge blasting. And I think because of the buildings that we had there, we should be fortunate. We are lucky that we didn't have a lot of high-rise buildings like what happened in Lebanon, I think last year. Because the vibration, when we're doing the blasting of the rocks and we drill, the expert will come and do what we call the charging, and then they interconnect them with the flexible wires that they use before they charge them. Even with that one, we make sure that the vehicles, which are the last person doing the charges before the blasting, the car is already on, and then just after he connects all the holes that we have charged with the drilled, and then inputted the chemicals, explosives in, he moves the car immediately after the last charge with the lighting, and then within the next 15 minutes or 20 minutes, the blasting takes place. And we, on the road, sometimes we are constrained with houses closer, so we would have to go into the communities and tell them to move a minimum of about 400 meters away, because that is even what we expect at the time. So with this track, I'm sure that it will travel a radius of not less than 700, 800 at the junction. I mean, where the location happened. Any other diameter across it would be, the impact will be felt over a kilometer, and that was magnificent. And so we should be fortunate that we are lucky that we didn't have a lot of high-rise buildings within the neighborhood. Otherwise, it would have been very, very severe. It could have been more disastrous. Right before I get to Doc, so you spoke about the vibrations. I just want to, lest I forget. Now, how is this going to affect the structural integrity, not just the buildings there, but the land itself? Because, there are other areas where there have been bomb blasts and all of that, and then,
moving into the future, earthquakes and all of that. With an explosion of this nature, how does this even affect the land area of Piate, so that even if we're going to reconstruct the place, I mean, what are some of the things we should look at from an engineering perspective?
Well, thank you. When the environmental people are done with the extent of chemicals within the area, I mean, the acceptable limits, I'm sure the doctors will come in and I mean, the government has to do a wholesale check on individuals who were within the vicinities and even the outskirts of the town, so they will know the extent of inhalation of this poisonous chemical that can lead to some cancerous cells, whatever it is in the medical field. But we have the basic idea about this. But one of the rules that we're going to do for the construction, like the environmental people come and do the extent and then everything, the planners will come. But before the planners will come, I am proposing, I've not heard it from any of them so far, there will be a seismic test. And a seismic test is like we are trying to do something about earthquake. Vibrations of such magnitude are just similar to earthquakes, how earthquakes happen. So there will be a seismic test zeroed in at the location, I mean the whole community. That will be able to tell us the extent of fracture of the land and where structures which are supposed to be closer to areas where there was the severest of structure fractures will be what do you call it? Like there will be an advice from the engineering point for the sort of foundation, the type of foundation to be used in the construction of such buildings. So apart from all that they have said, I would propose that there will be a seismic engineer to run a seismic test, so that will give us definite information about how the land was fractured. And that will be an added advantage or information to the structural engineers who will be designing the foundations of such structure. No matter how high we are going, even if it's 1 floor or 2 floors, this information will be very, very good for planning the town, the areas where there will be maybe reservoirs, there will be high-rise buildings, a lot, so that even in the fractures, you'll be able to know the extent of seepage of water in areas closer, if there's any water closer to the place. Now, once the soils are so fractured, it means that there's a lot of passages seeping through, or the liquids uphill or anywhere will be able to seep through the dam. So all this will have to be considered. And then if there are even water bodies around, let me say there are 2 water bodies. One may be a residue of a mining sector, a mining site. And then the one downstream might be a river, water for consumption. The fractures within the rock from uphill, downhill would give us a sense of idea, the extent to which the fluid uphill will travel to the downhill. So there will be tests done on all these waters to be able to, like the CSIR, to know few other things in terms of, now the land has been fractured, you understand? So any material liquid that would have taken, say, 5 years or 1 year to get to a certain location, now will take lesser year to get to the location. So all these are the things that we have to, but the most important one is the seismic test that will be added and added information to the structural engineers for the construction and planning of the city as we move ahead.
Right. Let me come to Doc now. And before we get into the psychiatric, focal point with you, I'd just like to find out from you, from your observation, I'm sure you've watched the videos and followed this event. How did it strike you, having seen what happened in Piate? Let's start from there, Dr. Owusu-Antwi.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning. My sympathies goes out to the people in Piate.
Right.
And surrounding towns, their immediate families and all that. This is very devastating. I see this as traumatic enough, and I hope that the people in the town will get all the help that they need in all its dimensions, even in this difficult time.
Right. So let's look at the psychiatric dimension to all of this. Traumatic. We've heard of incidents where a child supposedly in a haze saw his mother. Next thing he knew, body parts flying, and that was it. There are people who have seen, who can't find family members. There are some children who can't even find their parents, who can't find family members. Highly traumatic. There are people who saw people die right before them. There is the instance of those who, unfortunately, were approaching the burning vehicle right before one of the explosions. All of this happened. I mean, some people would even have come from adjoining areas and seen the carnage that had happened. Psychologically, in terms of the psychiatric perspective, what would be happening to these people? What would be going on in their minds? Hello, Doc.
Yeah, thank you very much. I am so happy. Yes, hello.
Yes, please go ahead. I can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm so happy that Joy News is taking the lead in this direction. When emergencies like this happen, it causes a lot of devastation on people, even on individuals, on their family members, the society, even at a large. What usually happens is that people begin to feel a sense of anxiety. They begin to feel afraid. They live in despair. They begin to have sleep challenges. In fact, people begin to feel that they have lost their sense of protection in a society that was previously together, previously intact. The traditional authorities were in place, political authorities were in place, health structures were in place. Everything seems to have lost its grounds. And so people begin to feel afraid. They begin to feel that their sense of protection have been lost. And then again, this kind of emergency can potentially aggravate existing mental health challenges, or it can start or precipitate new mental health challenges. And I am sure that majority of the people in Piate now are going through very challenging issues and problems. When you look at research in other areas where such traumatic experiences have occurred, statistics is showing about 80 to 85% of the inhabitants of the township experiencing one form of mental health sequelae out of the sequelae from the emergency or from the traumatic experience. But then again, research has shown that if there is support enough, support gets to these people early enough, this high risk of mental health sequelae out of these mental health sequelae of these traumatic experiences are markedly reduced. And that is why the Psychiatric Association of Ghana want to take this challenge up, go to a Piate, do an initial assessment and see how best we can intervene. That some weeks or some months or even some years to come, we don't have a whole township with high levels and high degrees of various mental health disorders.
Now, it's interesting that you've started painting this picture. In anticipation of this discussion, I actually took the time to look at, for example, years ago, in 2011, some of the natural disasters or things that happened. You can talk about the Queensland floods in Australia, the Christchurch earthquake, the Japanese tsunami, and just try to follow the events, the mental health issues that some of those who survived or saw these incidents have had to share. And some of them, even till today, are suffering the after effects, mental health effects of those very serious, natural disasters that happened. That brings me to the question, Doc. What could be some of the psychological or psychiatric impact that an event like what we saw last week could have on some of these victims? Panic attacks and anxiety. Break it down for us, some of the things they likely would be experiencing.
Yes, you are absolutely right. What is immediately expected to happen is what we call acute stress reaction, which can further lead to acute stress disorder, and then panic, post-traumatic stress disorder, and for a wide range of anxiety disorders. When traumatic events happen like this, in the immediate 24, 48, up to about 72 hours, you expect the people to naturally be scared, be anxious, be extremely afraid, and all that. And if people don't handle that fear well, they tip into what we call acute stress reaction. This acute reaction to the traumatic events that happens. And some people's reactions are overboard. And if within that 72 hours, their reaction to this traumatic event is not handled well, beyond the 72 hours to about 2 weeks after the incident, they can develop what we call acute stress disorder. Then the reaction now develops into a disorder where people are struggling with sleep, they are always on the edge, they are very irritable, they are extremely afraid, they are very paranoid, they don't know when next something bad is going to happen to them. There is a sense of impending doom all the time, and some of these symptoms will happen. And again, if at the level of the acute stress disorder, nothing is done to intervene, then these victims or these survivors and their immediate families are likely to suffer from what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. That is when they now relive the traumatic events daily in their lives. They are having nightmares. Anytime there is a sound that sounds like the explosion, the whole picture begins to flow back into their mind. So we call a reliving of the experience, of the traumatic experience, years and months after it has happened, and they are always on the edge. They are very anxious, and these are some of the anxiety symptoms or the anxiety disorders that can happen. Beyond that, people can develop what we call obsessive compulsive disorder. People can develop somatization disorders. Somatization disorder is a big word, but what it means is that people begin to now experience bodily symptoms for no apparent medical reason. So you are having headaches, you are having burning sensation under your feet, there are tingling sensations all over your body, there is pain in the knee, pain here and there. You have done a buttress of labs, and you are medically fit, but these symptoms are persistent. So when these things happen, then the person is going through somatization disorder, and it's very common in men. And then again, people are likely to resort to substance misuse, because out of the anxiety, they resort to non-healthy means of coping or non-healthy coping mechanisms. Some people may resort to drinking away their worries, their fears, and eventually land into substance dependence, especially alcohol and sometimes smoking. And then lastly, there is
I know some people even could abuse painkillers as a result of some injuries and all of that.
Exactly. And even sleep medications, diazepam could even be abused, and people can develop dependence out of it. And then again, very worrying again is the high correlation of some of these traumatic experiences and occurrences and suicidality. Many people, especially the men, who think that their whole fortune has been ruined or have been shut down by this explosion, would decide that it's not worth living. All that they have lived for and fought for has been crushed in one explosion, would decide that it's not worth living again. And suicide is another risk that we should quickly look out for and intervene. And then lastly, people can also experience just sleep disorders, and they struggle to sleep, they struggle to fall asleep, or suddenly they are experiencing what we call early morning waking up. So someone who will usually wake up at 5 a.m. because of this traumatic experience, suddenly by 3 a.m. they are awake, and it continues, it persists. So these are some of the range of have been documented to have arrests like.
Right. Very quickly on this, Doc, right before I segue back to Engineer Mahama, very quickly on this one. Do you think our response in terms of, yes, we've seen food and other items taken to the people, but do you think our response in terms of dealing with the psychological, the mental health problems of these people has been slow? do you think it's been slow? Because usually in other jurisdictions, you would see that immediately they would have had some assistance. For us, it has delayed up to this time. Have we been slow?
Exactly. It has. We have been extremely slow.
Please, could you start with your answer again? I think we missed.
Yes, I think we have been slow. But this is just about a week to the incident, and I think that Psychiatric Association of Ghana is coming in a bit early to averse an otherwise extremely delay of that intervention. And so I think that we have been a bit slow, but this time around it has been relatively faster compared to other disasters that have happened. I remember the stadium disaster. I remember the circle floods and all that.
Right.
Some interventions, some psychiatric interventions were offered, but they did not come in early enough. But I think that this time around we are learning, and we have decided to step in sooner than previous occurrences.
Right. I'll come back to you with other questions, but let me bring in Engineer Mahama now. So how long do you estimate it will take before the landscape of Piate will be ready again for building, for habiting, if you like? And what must be done for the land to be habitable again? You've spoken about liquids that could have seeped into the soil. We saw that huge crater that was created by the explosion. The landscape has been torn apart. What must be done, really, to make the land habitable? And how long do you estimate it will take?
Yeah, I think the gang in this case, the number of groups that will be formed would give us the indication as to how long it will take. If you bring in one gang to do the work with few equipment, it will last longer. But if you bring about maybe a number of gangs, in this case the gangs are the team, isolated teams who are doing the same work at the same time, grading the land, taking up all the debris, removing all the explosive materials, building debris on the side, the metal ones, the earth ones, what do you call the soil types, and then leveling the land. And in areas where we had a lot of loose material up, we'll grade the material and start doing layer by layer compactions to get the land a bit stable for the buildings to be started. So there will be a schedule. The leader of the team will give a schedule as to the equipment available, the resource persons available, or the experts available, i.e. the building engineers, the building contractors, the artisans that they are going to assemble, and then the plan, the master plan of the team, and whether they will have maybe, let's say, if you have about 6 gangs working at the same time for the construction, and they will all give their specified times as to what time they can get to a certain stage in the construction process and to the end. But before I forget, like Doc was saying, we seem to like the cameras when there's such devastations or such accidents. In 2015, on the 24th day of December, in fact, I had to carry injured bodies in my pickup to the Nsaon Government Hospital. You remember there was a similar explosion in Nsaon on the 24th day of December, which affected over 1,025 plus residents. About 217 buildings were affected, including the then MCE who was in power. And the next morning, the Interministerial Select Committee led by James Agaga came to the Nsawam area around the Piabo quarry site to more or less to sympathize with the people who have been affected. The next day, the current president, who was in opposition then, came to the site, came to solidarize with the people, and then expressed the unfortunate and how they're going to help to solve the problem. As we speak, 6 years or so down the line to the 7th year, the people are yet to receive compensation for an action that was taken by a quarry site which had been abandoned. And let me give you one scary thing about explosives. I have read all the laws, okay, but in the process, as we know it practically on the site, when you acquire explosives from outside the country from the manufacturer, it is given up to the minute, 1 minute tracking, even on shore, because they know that the least mistake would cause what we have seen at Piate now. So even from the manufacturer's end, on the ship to come and dock at the harbor, there's a tracker that is following every single movement of this explosive to the end user. And the Ministry of Interior would have up-to-date information as to the quantity coming to the country, where they are stored, and even the locks. The locks are not only kept by the supplier. So when we're doing the construction and we're doing this blasting along the Ayi-Mensah stretch, the Peduasi area, and in Sound Bypass and the Kumasi Road, you'd have to go to the police in the morning, to the Armor Division. They will come along with you, inspect, open and inspect, and give you the quantity they are supposed to use for the blasting with an expert. And so, if things have gone on like this, and I'm giving you the one that I was present, my location was just about 2 kilometers away, and I was fast asleep. The first explosion got me standing akimbo, as if I was not sleeping. And because of my experience in the blasting, I told my colleagues that, see, we are far away, but let's start moving away from here. And the next 30 minutes, there was a second explosion. And the whole town, on the eve of Christmas, had to relocate that night to the town because of the information some of us volunteered to give to the people to move down further away from the community.
Wow.
7 years, more or less, as we speak. I'm telling you, 7 years as we speak, none of those people who are affected, the vehicles who were moving from Nsawan to Adenso, who were just unfortunate to be at the scene when the explosion happened in two folds. None of them had been compensated.
Right.
The buildings that are there have not received any structural integrity. And out of frustration, these people have gone in again to continue their buildings because they don't have anybody to speak for them. I have seen that in Parliament, the MP for the area had been on his legs for some 3 times to actually remind authorities to address the issue. And I hope that this one should not suffer the same problem as the people of Nsawam, Piabo suffered in 2015, December 24, where I was actively involved in carrying wounded bodies in my pickup to the hospital to and fro. And so like the doctor is saying, psychological, sometimes when you see some of these things, then you lay back to see how you felt it at the time that it happened within your vicinity. And the authorities have to stop the talking. In fact, too much talking. This issue about the explosive being carried, I'm hoping to get, or we are hoping to receive an up-to-the-minute information about the investigation as to how these things were being transported. I'm telling you, as a consultant, we had difficulty assessing our explosive because the contractor is an international contractor, and he knew the processes involved in his homeland.
Right.
And so he even ensured that the same thing are done when we're even transporting this, explosive to our site. So government should open up, let this investigation be done thoroughly, and heads must roll. Because per the information we are getting as at this stage, we didn't see from the Niger videos whether there were conveying trucks, vehicles, pickups leading the chemicals as they were going to their destination. Because what I know is that before you move with such quantity of chemicals, which are highly dangerous, which are very, very dangerous because of the extent of explosion, sometimes a pickup with the danger sign on top of it, with about 4 or 5 experts in the pickup, would be warning off people ahead.
Right.
If there are any possible collusion or whatever.
Right.
And from the investigation so far, we didn't see anything like that.
So those are questions we ought to be asking as well.
Government should not hide this information from us.
Okay.
Because I'm saying that we are reliving what's happening in Sawam and other places, and there has not been any insight after 5 years, after 7 years.
Right. Engineer Mahama, hold briefly for me there. And your point has been made in this respect. But let me quickly, I'll come right back to you. But let me quickly put this to Dr. Ainchi. Now, it's interesting because in the course of the news review, someone sent a comment and I didn't have enough time to read it. Oting Hayford said, tell them to compensate the Awoshi-Pokwasi affected persons whose land government took. The case of compensation is 11 years now, and they aren't doing anything positive about it. A lot of the affected persons are going through hell. Where to sleep is a big problem for many of them. They should look through the letter on their table and pay them. I just want to synchronize what engineer has been saying with you know, this bit here, this message that was sent to us. We've been told about the restoration efforts in Piate, but between now and when that happens, should it actually happen, what would you say is the impact that is usually had on people who are displaced, like in this instance? We see here those who have not got their compensation, and if same happens in Piate in terms of relocation being slow or no compensation, what usually is the impact on people?
Yeah, so I talked about a wide range of mental health implications of emergencies and traumatic events like these, and some of them seem to be in a graded pattern, and from all over the world, the researches that have been done, statistics is proving that the amount and the extent of the support that these victims get is directly proportional to the extent of the short-term or long-term mental health challenges that they are likely to suffer. And so if, for instance, people are displaced and they are not getting any help, they are not getting any support to be now relocated and be given decent places anymore, what do you expect? These people are likely to say that life is not worth living. That is when suicide risk increases. That is when substance abuse increases. Many of these people are likely to resort to substance abuse, alcohol abuse, smoking, etc. And so in Ghana, we don't seem to have these data, these statistics to back some of these things. But now that there is a psychiatric association in place, we are going to do due diligence. We are going to follow up on these victims and their family. In fact, we plan to do series of visits. After today's visit, we are going to go back there to the town 2 weeks time, 1 month time, 6 months time, and even a year to actually collect data. And when you have evidence to prove to the government that, look, if this is not done, this is the amount of damage that is caused, maybe somebody will listen. And so we should not wait for it to happen. We can learn from what has happened elsewhere and bring in proper relocation, proper settlement for these people who have lost their homes and their sense of livelihood out of this. And so for the Psychiatric Association of Ghana, we don't want to just talk. We are going to Piate this morning. We're going to spend the whole day there with our entire membership, screen the people, do initial assessment, get a baseline and a sense of the mental health challenges they may be going through. We are carrying some anxiolytics with us. Anxiolytics are anti-anxiety medications for people who may need it. In fact, speaking to the district director there, they have already identified people who really need some mental health intervention, and they want us to meet with them. And so we hope that this intervention, which we think has been a bit earlier than previous instances, would reduce the occurrences of long-term mental health challenges. And as we are doing our bit, we call upon all bodies and entities also involved to do their bit in terms of settling and resettling these people as soon as possible.
Let me just ask you this, Doc, before I go back to engineer. You know, this has got me reading a lot about other disasters that have happened in the past. You can cast your mind back to 2005, $125 billion of, you know, losses, 18,000 people affected. I'm talking about Hurricane Katrina. Ours is a smaller scale, much smaller scale. So far, 14 people who have lost their lives. But how long does it take for people to get past the mental health issues that arise from such situations? Here's the point I'm trying to make. It is said that time heals wounds, and over time, naturally, people let go of the hurt, the pain, the memories, and all of that. But we saw in the case of Hurricane Katrina, people in New Orleans actually over time only became more affected, mentally speaking. What are your expectations as far as the people of Piate are concerned? Would it be dependent on how proactive we are in dealing with their situation?
Certainly, how early interventions are given directly affect the outcome, the mental health outcome of our people, of the people at Piate where the emergency occurred. Look at developed countries where they have even enough mental health aspects, where they even have all the expertise. People years after still suffered even severe mental health challenges. When you look at the trend, they actually reduce in intensity as time goes on, but some of them who probably did not seek help are likely to get severer form or develop severer form of mental health challenges. Notable among them is what we call post-traumatic stress disorder and other range of anxiety disorders. And so with our system, where we have few psychiatrists, just about 50 psychiatrists to over 30 million Ghanaians. I mean, how are we going to render this support? Now, the people who have died in this emergency are a few compared to other emergencies that have happened elsewhere in the world. But let us consider the extent of damage to those who are alive. Many homes have been lost. People have witnessed other people dying. And so those who are alive, but those who are dead and gone are dead and gone. There's not going to be any mental health intervention we are going to be able to do. But those who actually are alive and suffered various degrees and actually witnessed the trauma are a lot in this case. And from my last check, there are more than 70 people getting to 100 people. And so these are the people we are going to focus on to make sure that if we are giving early intervention, then with time, the severe mental health challenges that could have otherwise arisen without this intervention would be low or will be less severe. And no matter what we do, some will still live with those challenges, but hey, we are still here to give the support even throughout the difficult period. But once intervention goes in earlier, and intervention is not just one directional. It should be a multiple approach. People, like I said, when we are giving the mental health intervention, the government is also coming in with resettlement. The district health directorate is also coming in with the help that the people need. Those who have wounds, those who have had cuts, etc., are all being given intervention. So it's a multi approach that we should all look at all of this kind of emergency. And when we're able to do that, we are likely to averse long-standing or long-term mental health sequelae out of this. And that is what we are hoping to achieve.
Right. I'll give you a minute each to wrap. I'll start with you, Dr. Owusu. So if the right things are not done in less than a minute, if you can, what would be the likely effect? Right before I wrap with Engineer. What would be the likely effect on the community, on our health systems, on the country as a whole?
We are likely to get an increased numbers in mental health challenges. We are likely to have a whole community full of alcoholics. We are likely to have an increased rate of suicide. We are likely to have a non-functional community full of people who are living with anxiety disorders. We don't want that to happen. We will not be able to do that alone as the Psychiatric Association of Ghana, and we want the government to support us. We are going in this time around with our own support. I mean, the little dues we take as an association is what we are using to purchase anxiolytics, is what we are using to fuel our vehicle to the place, is what we are using to go to the place and intervene. On a larger scale, we would need to attend to everybody there. And if we will get enough
to clarify,
support, we'll be able to avert the situation.
Just to clarify, so you're not getting any support from any institution or government. This is purely the Ghana Psychiatric Association embarking on this initiative. You're not getting support from government or anywhere?
Yes. So for this initial initiative, the Psychiatric Association of Ghana is bearing the entire cost. We are having non-monetary support from our GMA, Ghana Medical Association, who helped us to contact the various authorities in the township, linked us to the health authorities there, the traditional bodies and all that. But in terms of monetary support, what fuel we are using to go there are the medications we are sending. We are not receiving any payment for this. This is entirely the effort of the Psychiatric Association of Ghana. But we can only do so little. I mean, we as we go there today, we will appreciate the extent of the problem, and we are hoping that as we share aftermaths of our visits and we see the magnitude of the problem, other bodies will come in and support us. The government will come in and support us so that we can return and render a wider extent of support and intervention to the people.
Thank you, Doc. Just stay with us as we wind down. Engineer Mahama, so for your wrap-up comments, I would like you to tell us, so what would be your expectations? Imagine you were managing this project. What would be your expectations in the next few days, this week, this month? What would you want to see within this time period in terms of rehabilitating Piate?
Well, I would want to see that government has allocated a place for those who are temporarily displaced. It's quite a good place for them to actually stay for now. And they want to see how serious the mining sectors or those companies within the area are willing to help. Like I've heard that some of the mining companies are already giving $50,000 in equivalent as in materials and other things. So the Ministry of Local Government, and as well as the Ministry of the Lands and Natural Resource, as well as that of the construction, should come in quickly and let's get an independent leaders in the built environment. The Ghana Institute of Engineers can be contacted to take the lead in quickly redesigning some of these buildings for the people within the community. And then after this are done, I'm sure that because they're not going to be high-rise buildings, I expect that in the next 1 month or two, if government is really committed, some of the buildings may be at the completion stage so that we can quickly bring these people back to their community where they so cherish. Otherwise, the longer they stay away from the community, they hire the cost. But quickly to touch on the compensation issue, the Pukwase area. These are done during the construction of roads and buildings, especially roads. And my only advice is that the authorities who are in charge, as the Lands Commission, they need to have, see, when we do the compensation for the initial people to move from their location where the roads are going to be passing, they give them some advance money to go and either put up a new building or rent a place. But government will not have to do the actual assessment of the cost of the lands and the buildings prior to final payment. That's the only place that I think it delay. So the people who are the valuation board and then the Lands Commission should up their game, because sometimes you finish a road construction and it takes 5 years, 10 years, people are yet to receive their monies. And the value of the lands keep on increasing. So that's my advice to the institutions who are in charge of this compensation. It cuts across almost all areas where roads are constructed, and compensation issues come up in due course.
Engineer Mahama, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Dr. Ruth Owusu-Antwi, thank you so much as well for joining the conversation. Engineer Abdullahi Mahama is a building consultant, and Dr. Ruth Owusu-Antwi is president of the Ghana Psychiatric Association. We have a lot coming your way. We'll be talking about the New Year school event, but also UTAG and the Accra situation where one life has been lost. Do stay. We'll be right back. Welcome back on the AM show as we talk the 73rd Annual New Year School of the University of Ghana, and the theme, COVID-19 and socio-economic dynamics in Ghana. It's a week-long activity starting from today till Friday. We have Jack Andrews Doche, Chair of the Technical Committee, Annual New Year School. We also have Dr. Ama Edumafo, Co-Director of the Annual New Year School. And I hear Mr. Doche will soon be doctor. So, Marvin, thank you so much for joining the conversation this week.
Thank you.
Right. This topic, let me start with you, Doc. COVID-19 and socio-economic dynamics in Ghana. Of course, we are still in the throes of COVID-19. But why this topic for the year? I mean, usually you have quite a, but this year you've decided to go COVID-19.
Yes.
What informed this?
Yes, thank you very much for your question. And actually, we have all experienced and witnessed the ravaging effects of COVID-19. Countries have not been spared. The continents have not been spared. The world entirely has not been spared. Within our Ghanaian economy, within our Ghanaian sector, the agricultural sector has been under stress. The health sector has been under duress. The educational sector has not been spared. COVID-19 has actually exposed the inequalities within our educational system. Right. When you come into the trade and industry, you realize that over the last year, in fact, when the COVID-19 pandemic set in, it was estimated that within the first 3 months, 42,000 people lost their jobs. And that says real stress and duress on the system. Within the financial sector, you also realize that a lot has gone on, and people have lost their jobs, businesses have gone down. And so this kind of set the tone for us to begin to reconsider, to review, to analyze, and to discuss and deliberate on what exactly has transpired as at when the COVID set in up until this time. We want to know what the challenges have been. We want to be able to come up with recommendations and propositions that we can actually forward to government that will help them to shape their policies and shape their guide them to be able to come up with very good measures and interventions for the country. So the whole idea for this COVID-19 topic is to help us to re-strategize and to create our economy, revitalize it and reposition it for economic growth. That's,
right. So this in a way is also to shape policy.
To shape policy.
Moving into 2022.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, that is the key and central purpose of the Annual New Year School.
Right.
To bring together experts from various fields and sphere of life to deliberate on critical national issues with the goal of coming up with strategic proposals that will shape government policy, legislation, and programs so as to drive the national development agenda. To add to what Doctor had just said, you would also understand that the main industry that has been affected by the COVID is the tourism sector.
Right.
Livelihood has been lost, lives have been lost. These undoubtedly had a negative impact on resources or tax generation for national development. It is therefore imperative that we rethink and re-look at the way forward.
Right.
How to prepare ourselves, position this nation from the health sector to the agricultural sector, so that in the next century, if there happens to be such a pandemic,
practically every century we have something.
That has been the trend. So we should be ready. We should lay a sound foundation for the next generation to be empowered, to be prepared to deal swiftly with such a ravaging effect which had not spared any economy. And so that's what we're trying to look at.
Right.
We provide opportunity for all Ghanaians to have a say, to come to the table to dialogue. Civil society, traditional leaders, business leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, the world of academia, to interrogate the issues, to go behind the issues, practical issues. So all over the country, participants will be coming, ordinary Ghanaians.
So I was just about to get into the opening ceremony is tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow, right.
The CD Center at the university.
No, at the Great Hall.
At the Great Hall.
Yeah.
Who are some of those you've invited to come in? The speakers you were talking about. Can you mention some of them?
Yes, we have as a guest speaker the country director for World Bank, Mr. Pierre Frank Laporte, who is an astute economist, who had diverse experience from other jurisdictions of economic management, to share his thoughts on what is working in other economies and that Ghana can pick some lessons from. Then for the first time, we have Dr. Juliet Twackley, who is a physician leader with several years of international leadership in policy direction, to also come and share her perspective from the medical perspective, because this COVID had the impact on the economy and social life. And so these are the two key speakers who set the tone for the discussion. Of course, the President of the Republic is going to open the school. And
that's the big one, isn't it?
That's a big one. and the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, who each year the school looks out for a partner institution to work with. So for this year, we're working with the Ministry of Finance, and we are looking at the Ghana Care Obatapa program, which was initiated as a result or in response to the COVID. And so the investors think that...
So you're going to find that nexus, and address it from the standpoint of COVID-19 and its socio-economic impact.
Exactly.
Right. Let me come to you, Doc. So the main school and conference, and my apologies, I mentioned...
that's fine.
So the first one is the Great Hall, but the main school and conference is what is happening at the CD Center. Tell us about what we can expect.
Okay, so at the CD Conference Center, we're going to have 7 different panel discussions. And these panel discussions are based on themes that have been carved out of the major theme, that is COVID-19 and socioeconomic dynamics. So we have in the area of agriculture, we're going to look at a theme like agriculture, greening Ghana for food and jobs in the pandemic and beyond. We're also going to look at consolidating the gains of COVID in education. We'll be looking at global peace and security. We'll be looking at the private sector in terms of them being the engine of growth. We're looking at local and national governments paving the way for sustainable communities. We'll be looking at the youth as well. So there are...
And I was about to get to the youth school and what would go into that component. So you go ahead.
Yes. So then for those, for the 7 themes that we have carved out, we have several speakers who have varied expertise from diverse backgrounds, industry and academia as well. And so we have for the agric sector, for the agric area, we're looking at the Minister for Food and Agriculture, Honorable Owusu Ifeyi-Akoto, and he will be supported by some of our able professors at the university, the Dean of the Faculty of Agriculture. In the area of education, we have the Vice Chancellor of University of Ghana, our very first Lady Vice Chancellor, Professor Nana Abba Amfo. She would be there. We would have the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the KNUST. We would also have the Pro-Vice Chancellor of UPSA, that is the University of Professional Studies.
The Vice Chancellor.
The Vice Chancellor.
This is going to be huge.
Oh, no.
Yes.
And you have Mr. President, you have the Finance Minister, you have these Vice Chancellors and all of that. This is big.
Exactly. We also have Patrick Ewua of Ashesi University.
Oh, Ashesi University.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So it's a blend of expertise with varied and diverse perspectives.
The academics are coming to town.
It promises to be very exciting.
It's bringing the gown to the streets.
Bringing the gown to the streets, you know.
Anyway.
And then if I should move on to the youth program, Jack would add on. what we are trying to do is to empower the next generation of youth with leadership skills and entrepreneurial skills so that they can transform the country and the continent as a whole. And so we'll be looking at topics like entrepreneurship, mentorship. We're looking at the youth volunteering as a means of developing their leadership personalities, leadership traits. We'll be giving them a lot of leadership principles that would enable them transform their various communities and various corners. And so we have, again, the Honorable Minister Kenneth Oriata, who will be spearheading that session alongside other very interesting speakers. And so
just a quick one. Sometimes we say youth, and do we have any youth speakers? Maybe some figure who has done something and will also be sharing thoughts there. Okay. If not, maybe that's something we should consider for the next time.
Yes. So we have a couple of youth speakers. We have the president of GRASAC, who is a lady, who will be at this function to contribute when we're looking at mentorship. We're looking at graduates from SHS to the university and young adults who have left the university. We're also looking at a diverse composition of the platform for the youth discussion. Okay. The goal, as Dr. has said, is to empower the next generation. Okay. The University of Ghana is of the view that the future, which has been the mission of the university, to develop the human capital capable of addressing our national needs. So bringing the youth into the youth school alongside the main school is begin to open the doors of opportunities for the youth to see themselves as owners who should be part of the national development agenda.
Okay.
So developing their capacity in leadership and entrepreneurship would enable us in the next century have a capable set of minds who would drive an economy that is private-led, private-oriented.
And that's what we'd love to do. But right before, this is the final bit, I'll give it to you, Doc. I know the event will be live streamed. For those who want to catch up with the event, how do they do so?
Okay, so it will be live streamed, first of all, and then it will also be accessible on any of our social media handles, Facebook and YouTube. You can also log on to the University of Ghana website, and then you will have access directly to the program. And so basically you can actually just walk in. The New Year's School and Annual Conference is for every Ghanaian, every citizen of Ghana from every corner of this country. Just walk in and feel free, take part in the deliberations, take part in the discussions, take part in the decision making, and take part in taking our nation forward.
Thank you so much. So it's all about the 73rd Annual New Year School and Conference. We were joined by Mr. Jack Andrews Doche, who is chair of the technical committee of the Annual New Year School, together with Dr. Ama Eduma, for co-director, Annual New Year School. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, and after the break, there's more right before we draw the curtains on the AM show. Do stay. Well, from what happened in Piate, let's talk about the Accra Senior High School Technical School at Odomase Krobo, which has been closed down following brewing tensions between residents and students. Why? A suspected thief died after he was allegedly attacked by some students of the school at Odomase Krobo in the eastern region. Now, the deceased and one other suspect were reported to have been arrested and physically assaulted by the students when they snuck in on them on campus. Now, residents have since stormed the school premises to attack some of the students over the incident. Eastern Regional Correspondent Kofi Siao joins us from the town. Kofi, thank you for joining. Now, what is the latest you can report? We are told that the headmaster asked the students to maintain calm and all of that, and even after the invasion. But what is the latest that you can report? What is the state of the school right now?
Okay, what is happening on campus this morning, and it started from yesterday in the afternoon, is that the school authorities, in collaboration with the Ghana Education Service and the chiefs and elders of the area, have decided that the school is shut down for now so that when CAM returns, they can ask the students back to school. If you come here on campus right now, almost every student has left. You could only see some members of staff around and some security officers, the police. They are here to ensure that there is maximum security in the school. So if you ask me about what is happening this morning, I can tell you that the place is very calm now. And those on campus, that is the staff of the school, are going about their normal duty, even though teaching and learning is not happening. They believe that when the students return, probably in 2 weeks' time, that is what I'm gathering, they can conduct their usual teaching and learning in a very peaceful atmosphere.
Right. Lynching, of course, not permissible, mob justice, but I'm sure you may have interacted with some of the students before they left. How did they feel on the back of the fact that they got this thief? Of course, they did the wrong thing by lynching, but being attacked by the townspeople, how did the students feel about that? Did you get anything from them?
Okay, what they are saying is that thieves have been raiding their campuses often, and usually they wouldn't be able to arrest any of them. So when this person or these two people were caught in the act, that is what they say, they had to unleash all the attacks on them. So in fact, after the incident, if you speak to some of them, most of them, even though they did not want to speak, but the few that I spoke with said that they didn't mean to, cause the lynching, but it's unfortunate that one of them died in the process.
Right. Now, going back to the lynching act, it is against the law. And I know police officers have been to the school premises and all of that. Has there been any identification, parade, or anything of the sort to find out those who partook in the lynching? I mean, what is the word from the police so far on this matter?
Okay, so the district police commander, Superintendent Doris Grant, says that they have launched investigations into the issue, even though they've not been able to arrest any of the suspects. But she believes that with time, as the police look into the matter, they are going to apprehend anybody who was found to have caused the death of the person who died. And also, she said she's not going to leave the town folks out. Those who also attacked the school will also be investigated, arrested, and be made to face the law when they are found in any of the attacks.
Right. Of course, we know that as far as the law is concerned, these students who may have been involved, it would also depend on whether they are juveniles, whether they've not yet attained the age of majority, that is 18 and all of that. So different dynamics. But I want to find out, I know one Sakite is the one who lost his life and the other one is in critical condition. What can you tell us about this Sakite's counterpart who is receiving medical care? Where is the person receiving medical care and what is the state?
So she is currently in critical condition at the St. Martin's du Porres Hospital in Agomenya. What hospital officials are saying is that they are still working on him, and they believe that very soon he's going to respond to treatment, and later on, if it's important, they're going to discharge him to go home.
Right, and maybe finally to wrap it all up, the townspeople themselves who partook in the act of raiding campus, I'm sure no one would own up to it. But how have they reacted to the fact that it was on the back of stealing, thievery, that the students reacted in this way? I mean, what has been the interaction so far between them on one hand and the school authorities on the other hand?
Okay, so just as you said, none of them would want to go on record, but they claim that these are people, the two are people they knew very well in the community. They can vouch for them that they are not thieves. They are people that they do everything with. So it came as a surprise to them when they heard that the students have accused them of being thieves and went further to, attack them, leading to the death of one of them. So they expressed surprise at the development and they wish that didn't happen.
Right. And so for them, they are incredulous and they don't feel these people were the perpetrators. But Kofi, thank you so much for joining us for this all-important conversation. And that is our Eastern Regional Correspondent, Kofi Sian, who joined us. So today on the AM show, we've had discussions on UTAG with Professor Jampo earlier. We went to Piate and found out from the engineering perspective, the psychological perspective, what to look forward to. And now we've had the Accra Senior High Technical School situation. As there are further developments, we'll bring you the details in our news bulletins and beyond. My name is Benjamin Akako. This has been the AM show. Let's catch up same time tomorrow. Have a lovely day.